Welcome everyone to this dialogue session for the Southeast Asian Short Film Competition Program 2. My name is Vignesh Kovinathan and I'm a film programmer with the Asian Film Archive, and I've been invited today by the Singapore International Film Festival to moderate this session. So we have with us here the four filmmakers from the program. Firstly, we have Rafael Manuel from Philippines, who directed Filipinana. We have Ostin from Singapore, who directed Here Is Not There. We also have Ostin who directed Binh. And lastly, we have Danech who made Sunrise on My Mind. Sunrise in My Mind, sorry, from Cambodia. So yeah, thank you all for joining. I just want to first start off by saying that, I always try to see what links the films together. Are there any common threads that run through? And on a sort of a very surface level, your films each deal with characters who are, in the working class in ways. But what's also very refreshing about the way you portray them is that, they don't show them just as sort of objects of labor. The focus is not just about their labor, but they are, about their desires, their inner world, their inner truths. And I think that's something that comes out in each of your films in various ways, in various textures as well. Notions of displacement, about home, about belonging in many ways. So I think Rafael's film and the next film form a sort of nice bookend to the program, in the sense that they are, they're both about women, but they're also about female desire and some sort of escapism or fantasy element is definitely present there. So I'd like to firstly start off with Rafael. I wanted to ask about how you balance the visual aesthetic of the film and also the emotional complexity of your characters. Because on one level, you for the lack of a better word, there is a certain twee look to the film. It's very clean. The images and there's all these sort of repeated, very choreographed actions, which essentially reflect the bizarreness of this class system in a way. This golf course being a very surreal, bizarre world. But at the same time, you can't help but feel for the character in your film. There's definitely a great emotional depth to that. I was wondering how you managed to bring that across. How do you manage to balance these two elements?
Thank you. Good question. I think I'm still figuring it out myself. No, I think my aspect ratio really helps with that. I think because he's 4:3, so in terms of the balance of kind of like the aesthetic, which is it really helps us with keeping because with 4:3, right, what we lose in terms of width, we gain in terms of verticality. So in terms of communicating I guess like the social imbalances or like the power structures within the golf course, it really helps us. But also at the same time, before moving on to the emotional part of it, and we kind of really wanted to develop this aesthetic of oppression that we wanted to explore through the golf course. But also at the same time, because when we use 4:3, it also helps us in terms of framing particular characters, especially Isabel, in terms of centering her. And also when we move on to close-ups, which we only really kind of have on Isabel and on her face, like I feel like it makes it stronger, especially considering most of our shots are either wide or mediums. And then when we do close-ups on Isabel, then I feel like it helps us and helps the audience connect more with her, and especially when she's center framed, which works really well on 4:3. So I think one of those key elements is 4:3, as well as like the juggling of tone of the writing, obviously, and like all the other elements. But visually, I feel that helps.
Thanks, Rafael, for sharing that. Yeah, because I think a lot of us are familiar with these aspect ratios, but other than it being an aesthetic choice, I suppose we don't. A lot of people don't think about what it brings across emotionally as well. I think that was really great for you to share. So thanks for that. And so moving from Rafael's film, I also wanted to go to the next film, Sunrise in My Mind. I think obviously the segment in your film that really it takes people by surprise, but it's also, it adds wonderful textures to it. Is that the moment where the film breaks into this parallel world in some sense. This blue, sensual, otherworldly space. I'm wondering how did you envision that space? How did that come to you within the larger narrative that you're trying to weave?
Yeah, actually, it happens um, during the pre-productions of the film, because when I wrote the story, it's actually I never had that in mind, like to change the aspect ratio. And it sort of happens like to work with the director of photography, which I worked for the first time with him, and he was proposed these anamorphic, and then it seems new for me. And also this is my second film, and I was not sure like how to shoot, but also because the framing as well, like it's very new. But at the same time, we during the scouting, that's how I have this idea, because to shoot in a small room, and with this aspect ratio, it it's feel how do you say, like you have to add a lot of things in the frame. But what I know clearly is that I just want to see the two of them like in this space. So for me, it's just a world with just the two of them. So for me, that's why I had this idea of changing the aspect ratio. And I also knew from the beginning that it's also taking risk of changing. It could be something that you it could be bad also, but it turned out with after with the sound design, we work with them and we try different things, and yeah, it worked out this way. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it really worked beautifully within the whole the way the film flows as well, and especially when you the shot with the aquarium, and then the shot with the two of them outside as well. So that connects the different parts together right at the end. So yeah. It was very well done in that sense. Yeah. And sort of moving from small spaces to larger locations, I want to talk about Ostin's film, Binh. You handle something that is, you have this sci-fi element, you have this idea of an alien coming into this large landscape construction, and your film also talks about these notions of isolation, about being somewhere that someone doesn't belong to, and you parallel that with the experience of the alien, but also in the spirit world as well. This like the guy who goes to the medium, and he finds that he wants to bring his wife back home. I wanted to ask about how you manage to, how do you bring this sci-fi element into this spiritual element? Do you see them as two separate worlds, or you see them sort of part of the same continuum in that sense?
So I started this project 2 years ago after I got back to Vietnam, after I was away for studying abroad and working for a few years. So when I first came back, I was quite shocked because of how the changes in terms of infrastructure in buildings are going on in Vietnam. It's drastic, and one of the main constructions that they've been developing is temples in the wilderness, and the temple in the film is only one of the many projects that they've been implementing throughout the country in order to create this pilgrimage for their idea of religious tourism. And that was really in line with how I felt isolated, even though I'm from here. And it was personal, but I think it was largely the same feeling for anyone who was away for a couple of years and came back recently. And when I first went to the location for scouting, there was this surreal feeling that I couldn't even describe it through words, or even making a documentary about it could even really embody. So I was thinking of fusing the documentary and the fiction materials together. I started shooting the construction for a year with 4 other people. So we started very small, and then throughout the course of a year, we started looking for funding and starting to write the script together. And the surrealness of it, I wanted to kind of convey it through a folkloric feel. And I was reminded of a folklore that I was told when I was younger about this guy who gets lost in another world with fairy in a magical world for 3 days, and when he comes back, it's been already 300 years. Then that story really touches me because it's about a person who's only away for a really short amount of time, but when they come back, they cannot even recognize their own home. And the alien story was inspired by that, and because I think sci-fi and folklore kind of share this common feeling of magic that surreal, but also very touching and very humane to me. And that's how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks Austin for that. Yeah, and I think what I really also like about it is about I mean, your film is about how, you know, it, of course on first glance you think it's, you know, it's like a sci-fi film, you know, but what you're doing interesting is you're sort of working within that genre, but you sort of expanding on the emotional capacity within it as well. You know, it's not just a genre film, but there's many things that come in and interweave within that. Which brings me to Nelson's film. I mean, I've seen like a bunch of Nelson's previous films before, and what I think is what I think you are able to do as well is that you have this this grasp of genre cinema, and yet you're able to also, like Ostin, imbue it with emotional complexity, and you're able to talk about various themes and layers within that. I wanted to ask about, when you were conceiving Here Is Not There, how did those elements come to you? Because on one end, you know, there is the love story element, but also you're also making a commentary on migrant labor and about migration, and about the themes that we've dealt before, about isolation, displacement. Yeah, I wanted to talk about how, could you maybe expand a bit about how you came up with this, the balance between these layers? Yeah.
The idea came about when we're just observing the workers in small workplace like that. There's also the different power hierarchy. Like, for example, the mainland Chinese workers, they are kind of like always bullying these Malaysian guys. So I think the initial story came for something as simple as that. But then also interested in, I'm just basically just observing. So that's the basic idea, basic inspiration for the concept.
And in terms of working with your actors, you know, that I do notice that these moments that are very sort of tender and very melodramatic in some sense, you know, are also very like it's reminiscent of certain sort of romantic cinema. You know, the part where she kisses him, and then there's that line where she's like, "Oh, I wish you kept going," or something like that. I mean, those moments can potentially take someone out of it, you know, but yet it somehow gels within the film. Could you expand a bit about how you managed to grapple with that in your writing process?
I did get a lot of comments that the script was a little bit melodramatic, but I kind of just went ahead with it because those are the films that I like. And in terms of working with the actors, I mean, because one of them actually more professional than the other. So it was kind of like basically the nice chemistry, and the chemistry was right. And I kind of just like worked their own characteristic into the storyline. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we have a couple more minutes. So, I mean, what I've been doing with the previous session as well is that I just wanted to ask each of you to maybe say a couple of words about any project that you have that is upcoming or that you're currently working on. If you'd like to share something about it, or say maybe give us an idea of what we can expect from you next. Maybe starting from Rafael.
So right now I'm currently in Paris in a residency. I'm working on my first feature, which is just an expanded version of Filipinana. So right now I'm trying to get it because I started off Filipinana was originally a feature and not a short, and then so now I'm trying to evolve it so that the feature version isn't just an extended version of the short. I'm also working on a short that I want to do next year again in the Philippines because we're location scouting next year for the feature, and I thought since I'm gonna be there with my crew anyway, might as well shoot something.
Great, thanks. And Danech, could you tell us about any upcoming projects that you have?
Currently, I'm on a shooting and research for my short documentary, Sea Within the Sea, which is funded by Danech and Ray Foundation. So we plan to finish the film, like the documentary, by next year. And also I'm writing my feature film as well, but just starting, so yeah. That's all.
Ostin?
Currently, I'm not really writing or developing anything. I'm teaching documentary film at Vietnam Film Association and working with high school students on their writing. I have ideas, but I think that's the most easy part. I guess everyone would agree with me, and I would wait for a right time to really put myself into it. The only thing I know for now is that I'm interested in looking into the generational shift and gap that happens in the past 30 years because of how Vietnam has been changing a lot, and several people who are in my previous generation, my parents' generation, who failed to catch up with this speed. And that's what I'm looking into. Thank you.
And Nelson?
Just finished another shot after the lockdown was lifted. So yeah, that, and I'm also preparing for writing my feature film. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And yeah, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, and wish you all the best for your current and future projects. So thanks, Rafael, Danech, Ostin, and Nelson, and hope to see you guys around sometime. Yeah, bye-bye. Thank you.